Thank you for calling the Starfinder Helpdesk. Having trouble with the Kessel Run? Think we can help with that. After today, you should be able to do it in 12 parsecs or less. First, there's a helpful cheat sheet that I found on Reddit that I will have linked to in the description, as well as an updated version of it linked in my Discord in the description. Another resource you should take a look at, on page 318 of the Starfinder core rulebook, you'll find a variety of diagrams that'll help explain some of the stunts that the ship can do, as well as help you keep track of the various arcs around your ship. As the pilot, from your character sheet, you need to know what your piloting skill bonus is. At later levels, you'll need to know how many ranks you have in the piloting skill, as well as how many resolve points you have at the time. From the Starship sheet, you'll need to know various pieces of information, including what speed the ship has, what the speed's maneuverability is, and which arcs of your ship have weapons in them. During combat, you're going to want to listen for calls about weak shields, as you'll want to turn those away from your enemy where possible. Before we get into the various actions and stunts that you can take as a pilot, we need to go over the basics of piloting a ship. There are 4 arcs for your ship: the forward, aft, port, and starboard arcs. These are important because these are where your shields are, as well as your weapons. If you take damage on a specific side, it does not affect the shields on other sides. As well as, if you're only facing a specific side towards your enemy, only the weapons mounted on that side of the ship can be fired at your enemy. The ship's speed is the number of times it can move 1 hex in the forward direction per round. Your ship's maneuverability affects how quickly your ship can turn. It is important to note that turning does not take from your ship's speed. A clumsy ship has to move forward 4 times before it can turn 1 hex facing. A poor maneuverability ship needs to move forward 3 times before it can turn 1 hex facing. An average 2 times, good 1 time, and a perfect maneuverability ship can turn 2 hexes without moving, after which it must move at least once before it can then turn 2 hexes again. Final note on the basics of flying is moving through an enemy starship's position. The hexes are not a standardized size, and the ships do not take up the entirety of their hexes, so you can fly through an enemy position so long as you do not end your movement in their position. Flying through an enemy position on a normal fly action gives your enemy an attack of opportunity of sorts. This is considered a free attack. It allows them, during their gunnery phase, to fire one of their weapons a second time from whichever arc they choose against your aft arc specifically. Before we talk about stunts, I should cover initiative. In Starship combat, initiative works a little differently. The pilot, every round on the helm phase, rolls initiative with their piloting skill. The higher your initiative is, the later you go in combat. The purpose of this is that facing and position matter a lot in Starship combat, and if you go later in the round, you have the advantage of knowing where your enemy is going to be. Now that we've covered the basics, let's get into the stunts. Every stunt counts as taking the stunt action, and we'll go over them now. The back off stunt has a DC 10 plus 1.5 times the Starship tier, and you move half your Starship speed in the aft direction without turning. If you fail the check, you move aft 1 hex and don't turn. And if you fail by 5 or more, you don't move at all, and you take a -4 to your armor class and target lock. Barrel roll is a DC 10 plus 1.5 times the Starship tier. Your ship must be large or smaller in order to perform this. And you move half speed forward and flip the ship, switching your starboard and port sides. for the remainder of this turn. If you fail, you move half speed and do not flip your sides. And if you fail by 5, you move half speed, do not flip your sides, and reduce your armor class and target lock by 4. Next, we have Evade with a DC 10 plus 1.5 times the Starship tier. You move and turn as per the normal fly action, and you gain a +2 to your armor class and target lock. If you fail, you receive no bonus to your armor class and target lock. And if you fail by 5 or more, you receive a -2 to your armor class and target lock. Next, we have Flip and Burn. With a DC 15 plus 1.5 times the Starship tier, you move half speed and rotate 180 degrees. A failure means you move half speed and maintain facing. Next, we have the Flyby stunt. With a DC 15 plus 1.5 times the enemy Starship tier. During this, you move as normal and move through an enemy space. Instead of triggering their free attack, you gain a bonus during your gunnery phase, treating any one weapon as facing the target arc that you choose. You treat the range the gun has to fire at as 1 hex. If you fail, you gain no bonuses, and you trigger the free attack as normal. Next, we have Slide with a DC 10 plus 1.5 times the Starship tier. Move up to your ship's speed in the forward port or forward starboard direction without changing your facing. If you fail, you move forward at half speed. Turn in place is your last stunt. There is no check, and you simply turn to face any direction without moving. A clumsy ship takes a -4 to its armor class and target lock, while a poor maneuverability ship takes a -2 to its armor class and target lock. Let's get into the actions that you can take. As a pilot, the actions you can take occur during the helm phase, either before or after your science officer. A few of the actions you can take are considered push actions, and in this case, if the engines are malfunctioning or wrecked, you cannot perform those actions. Your first action, your bread and butter, is fly. You move up to your ship's speed and take turns as allowed by your maneuverability. Your next action is maneuver. With a DC 15 plus 1.5 times the Starship tier, you fly up to your speed and reduce movement between turns by 1. On a failure, you move as normal. The stunt action is a push action, so it requires the engines be in good condition. And you simply apply one of the stunts we previously talked about. Full Power is an ability you unlock at level 6 or later once you reach 6 ranks in the piloting skill. It requires 1 resolve point to use, and it is a push action. You move 1.5 times your speed and add 2 to the distance between your turns. Your final action, Audacious Gambit, you unlock at level 12 or slightly after when you have 12 ranks in the piloting skill. It costs 1 resolve point and has a DC 20 plus 1.5 times the Starship tier. On a success, you move up to your speed and reduce the distance you have to move between turns by 2. You fly through enemies without provoking, and at the end of the turn, you can rotate to face any direction. On a fail, you treat this action as per the fly action while still spending your resolve point. Thank you again for calling the Starfinder Helpdesk. I've been Goat King, and I think now you should be able to make that Kessel run in 12 parsecs or less.